Let's go Dolphins! Something is happening within the Miami Dolphins organization that not all fans have noticed yet, a change that seems simple at first glance, but could completely alter the team's performance under pressure. And believe me, this could be the kind of decision that, looking back, we'll say, this is where everything changed. But before revealing why this is attracting so much attention behind the scenes, like this post right now, if you truly believe in the Miami Dolphins this season, and I want to see how strong that fan base really is, leave a comment saying, "Go Dolphins! I believe in this team." Now let's get straight into it. The Dolphins have officially signed defensive lineman Charlie Heck to a one-year deal, and this move comes shortly after the addition of Jermari Salyer. On paper, you might think this is simply the front office reinforcing the offensive line depth, something we all knew needed attention. But when you dig deeper, the story becomes much more complex. Charlie Heck, 29 years old, stands at 6 feet 8 inches and weighs 311 pounds. He entered the league in 2020 after being drafted by the Houston Texans, where he spent the entirety of his rookie contract from 2020 through 2023. That connection matters more than you might think, because Dolphins offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick worked with him in Houston. That familiarity likely played a major role in Miami targeting him, especially for a system that demands quick adaptation and trust from its players. From a strategic standpoint, the Dolphins clearly see Heck as a swing tackle, someone who can step in when needed, especially behind Austin Jackson and Patrick Paul. And let's be honest here, Patrick Paul is viewed as a cornerstone at left tackle, while Austin Jackson's situation is far less certain. He has just 1 year left on his deal and has struggled to stay healthy, playing less than half of the games over the past 2 seasons. That alone explains why Miami felt the need to bring in a veteran presence who can fill in if injuries strike again. Now here's where things get controversial. Despite the experience and familiarity with the system, Charlie Heck's performance metrics raise serious concerns. In his 6 starts last season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he played 473 snaps and graded near the very bottom among offensive tackles. In fact, he ranked 87th out of 89 tackles according to Pro Football Focus, and similar evaluations placed him at the bottom tier across the league. That's not just a slight concern, that's a red flag. And while he has shown flashes in previous seasons, including a slightly better stretch in 2022 with Houston, the overall consistency simply hasn't been there. Even in his better moments, the grades were still average at best. So what does this mean for Miami? On one hand, you have a player who knows the system, has starting experience, and can provide insurance if injuries hit. On the other hand, you're bringing in someone who statistically struggled more than almost any other tackle in the league last season. That's the kind of move that makes fans question whether this was truly the best option available. Meanwhile, the addition of Jermari Salyer brings a different kind of optimism. He's versatile, capable of playing multiple positions across the offensive line, and is expected to compete for a starting guard spot. The Dolphins seem to be building a system where younger players get opportunities, but veterans are there as fallback options if things don't go as planned. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Miami clearly isn't done. With multiple draft picks in the top 90, there's a strong expectation that the team will invest in the offensive line early in the draft. The strategy appears to be a mix of competition, depth, and flexibility, but whether that translates into a top-tier unit remains to be seen. Because if this move turns into a problem during the season, it won't just be about one player, it could impact the entire offensive structure of this team. And here's the part that a lot of fans aren't talking about enough. This signing tells us exactly how the Dolphins are approaching risk management in 2026. They are not just building for peak performance, they are preparing for worst-case scenarios. The front office knows that Austin Jackson's health is a question mark, and instead of gambling everything on him staying available for 17 games, they are stacking insurance options behind him. But let's be real for a second. Insurance only works if it's reliable, and that's where the debate gets even more intense. Because if Charlie Heck is forced into meaningful snaps, especially against elite pass rushers, this could become a serious weakness. The numbers don't lie, and the film backs it up. Last season showed clear struggles in both pass protection and overall consistency. Now imagine this scenario: mid-season, key game, playoff implications on the line, and suddenly Austin Jackson is out again. The Dolphins are forced to rely on Heck at right tackle. That's the kind of situation that can define a season. It's not just about depth, it's about whether that depth can hold the line when everything is on the line. At the same time, there's a path where this move actually works out better than expected. If Bobby Slowick truly believes in Heck, and if that familiarity with the system allows him to play faster and more confidently, we could see a different version of the player. Sometimes scheme fit changes everything, especially for offensive linemen who rely heavily on communication, timing, and system understanding. And don't forget the ripple effect of Jermari Salyer's presence. His versatility might end up being one of the most valuable assets on this roster. If things go south with Heck, Salyer could shift around the line, potentially even stepping into tackle responsibilities if needed. That flexibility gives Miami options, and options are everything in a long NFL season. But here's the bigger takeaway. This offensive line is still a work in progress. The Dolphins are clearly not done making moves. The draft will be crucial, and there's a strong expectation that at least one high-value pick will be used to reinforce this unit. The combination of a rookie, Salyer competing for a starting role, and veterans like Heck filling depth positions creates a competitive environment, but it also creates uncertainty. And that uncertainty is exactly what's fueling the debate among fans right now. Some believe this is smart roster building, low risk, depth-focused, system-driven decisions. Others see it as settling for less when better options might have been available in free agency. Because at the end of the day, if the Dolphins want to truly contend in 2026, everything starts in the trenches. You could have explosive weapons, a dynamic quarterback, and a creative offense, but if the offensive line doesn't hold up, none of that reaches its full potential. And this is exactly where things start to get even more intriguing when you zoom out and look at the full picture of what the Miami Dolphins are building right now. Because this isn't just about Charlie Heck anymore. This is about a philosophy shift. This is about how the Dolphins are choosing to construct their roster heading into a season where expectations are sky high. Think about it. Instead of going all in on a high-profile offensive tackle in free agency, the front office is spreading resources across multiple players, Jermari Salyer, Charlie Heck, and potentially a rookie from the upcoming draft. That tells us one thing very clearly. They are prioritizing competition over certainty. And competition can be a double-edged sword. On one side, it pushes players to perform at their absolute best. Training camp battles become intense, every snap matters, and you create an environment where only the strongest survive. That's how you uncover hidden gems, and sometimes that's how championship teams are built. But on the other side, it can also mean you don't have a guaranteed answer. You're hoping someone steps up rather than knowing someone will deliver. And for a team with Super Bowl ambitions, that's a risky game to play, especially on the offensive line, where consistency is everything. Now let's talk about something that might not be obvious at first glance. The Dolphins are quietly building layers of protection, not just for the quarterback, but for their entire offensive identity. This system relies on timing, speed, and precision. If the offensive line collapses, the whole structure falls apart. And that's why even a depth signing like Charlie Heck carries so much weight. Because depth players don't stay depth forever. Injuries happen. Rotations happen. And when your number is called, there's nowhere to hide. The difference between a good team and a great team often comes down to how those backup players perform in critical moments. Now here's another angle that should get your attention. The connection with Bobby Slowik is not just a minor detail. It could be the key factor that determines whether this move succeeds or fails. Slowik knows exactly what Heck can and cannot do. He's seen him in practice, in games, in meetings. That level of familiarity creates trust, and in the NFL, trust can sometimes outweigh raw talent. If Slowik believes he can put Heck in positions to succeed, simplifying assignments, adjusting schemes, providing help when needed, then maybe, just maybe, we see a version of Heck that looks completely different from what the numbers suggest. But that's still a gamble, and Dolphins fans know all too well what happens when gambles don't pay off. At the same time, there's a scenario where everything clicks. Patrick Paul continues to develop into a franchise cornerstone.